For many families, it's back to school time, and it can feel like a mid-year reset is needed, right, Carrie?
That's right. And fortunately, we're joined by Larry Sprung, the founder of Mitlin Financial, to talk about some of the tips that might come into play at this time of year. You know, Larry, just like in January, when you think about New Year's resolutions and the things you want to improve upon, for a lot of families, September is that turning of the page, coming off summer, going back to school. Is this particularly, you think, a good time, like with your client base, where people are starting to reassess financial goals and getting into a new rhythm?
I think it's a great time, Carrie, as we're entering the end of the year, right? Kids are back at school, we have a little bit more time, and we're entering that busy holiday season in a couple of months from now. So, and as you know, it's going to come really quick. So it's really a good time to reset, reevaluate, and start looking at that financial situation and set yourself up for success for the remainder of the year.
Gosh, but amid all of the changes happening right now, what are some simple ways that people can get started on that?
Yeah, I think one of the keys is really automation, right? I think we're in a very busy society. We're coming off the summer where we're very busy. We're going to be going into the holidays, as I said. So the more you can automate and make it easier, automate your bill payments, automate your savings, automate your investments, as much of that you can automate and take it off your plate so you don't have to remember, makes it super easy, easier. To move.
And I think that when people think about managing their finances, they think about their monthly budget, but then, you know, the summer comes and there are these expenses that are not planned for. Now people are kind of going into a rhythm maybe until the next big thing comes, which is probably for a lot of people the holiday season. So how do you recommend to your clients to plan for the monthly routine, but also, you know, have a buffer for those real big things that, you know, when you look back in 10 years, those are oftentimes the things you think about?
Yeah, I mean, listen, having a budget is vitally important, and I think everybody during summer has a tendency to get wrapped up and spend a little bit more than they expected because it's an enjoyable time of year. And now it's really, how do I get back on track? So it's looking at that monthly budget, how much is coming in, how much is going out, and identifying how much is left over and working towards replenishing those stockpiles of, you know, whether it's your emergency fund, your vacation fund, your gift for the holidays fund. That's where the automation comes in really handy, and start automating that and start building up those funds again now that those ancillary expenses that, you know, the ice cream at the end of the day and the movie that you weren't expecting to go see that consumes some of that capital, you can now utilize that and direct it somewhere else that'll be used for the remainder of the year.
And in your financial planning services, you actually foreground planning for joyful activities as well as a big part of it. And it's not just to add meaning to our lives, which is completely important, but it's also very practical. If you could tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, money is money, right? People think it's important, but at the end of the day, you're not accumulating money just to have money. You're accumulating money to turn it into something that's going to create a joyful experience, a joyful event for yourself. And it's important to budget for those joyful things, whether it's a vacation with the family or some special event, pizza night with the family on Fridays, or getting together on Sunday for Sunday dinner, whatever that looks like. Budget for that joy. And I will tell you this, one important fact is if you create a separate account for those joyful events and name them. So, you know, if you're planning a bucket list trip to South Africa and you name it South African Vacation and you start contributing it, there's evidence that shows you can grow that account or will grow that account 15% more quickly if you put a name and identify what the goal is with that specific amount of money. So be mindful, name those accounts, and have them separate buckets all set up, and you'll be able to accumulate it faster because your brain assimilates the goal right to that.
Wow, so just giving it a name, the data shows that you get to the goal 20% faster.
Because you're visualizing what that joyful experience is, and when it comes down to spending that money in the moment perhaps, or putting it away, you're more likely to put it away because you know what that end result is going to be.
Ah, I love that. What's that, like visualizing? Yes. And you make it a reality. Now, Larry, I want to talk about educating children. So parents sometimes aren't sure what's the right amount to open up to children, especially because you tell your kids this stuff stays within the family, but it never quite does. But of course, teaching them and modeling behaviors is very important. So how have some of your more savvy clients been able to walk that line?
Yeah, so I mean, again, I think that there's a fine line between educating our kids and having them know how much money we had and how we've accumulated. It's important to really, and it's really age-based, but it's really important to start educating them. So involve them in decision-making processes, like when you give them an allowance, or you should have them earning their allowance, and then sit down with them. What are you looking to do with the allowance? We had a piggy bank when our kids were really young that had 3 slots. It was, spend, save, and charity. And we'd sit down with them and have a conversation about how much of this money that you've gotten, how much should go into spend, how much in save, and how much in charity. Do that same exercise, and as they get older, you can incorporate even greater financial concepts with them. And if there are big decisions that the family are going to make, include them also. I think there was a study, or Dr. Daniel Crosby in his book, Soul of Wealth, he talks about involving family, and we're so tied to our families that, like, when a big decision is made or a big financial thing that we're looking at spending money on, if we simply look at a picture of our family and wait to make that purchase, we tend to make a better decision as to whether it will be a positive for the family or a negative. So you have to involve them. You don't have to show them and whip out the statements and show them the mortgage. You don't need to do that, but start educating them on very simple and basic concepts.
On that point, I've read about a study that says that people who looked at pictures of their ancestors did better on a test afterwards than the people who didn't. And the study's hypothesis was that perhaps having a strong family identity can ground people in such a way that they can focus more, or can commit more, things like that, these good qualities coming through. What do you say to building up a family story or family identity in terms of building in good financial identity for your children?
Yeah, I mean, it's super important because it's something that the school systems, I know that I've heard it for the 20 years I've been in practice, that this is something we have to teach in schools, and it's just not happening. So we have to do it in the home. And if you have the ability and the skill set to do it, obviously. If you don't, then you have to lean on others. Maybe there are other people in your family that have that skill set that can help you. Or if you have a financial advisor, we sit down with the kids of our families all day long. We actually just launched a YouTube channel recently because our families wanted a method that they could share financial concepts with their kids and grandkids, and they wanted to do it in a way that they would be interested in it. So as a result of that feedback, we created this channel, and now we're sharing that. So that foundation will stay with those kids for the rest of their life, and very frankly, generations to come.
So Larry, we have to wrap up just in a moment here, but before we do, maybe you could just share where people could find that YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's just if you put in my name, Larry Sprung, CFP, you'll find that YouTube channel, and there's a lot of great educational tips on there. It just launched, so there's only like 5 or 7 videos at this point, but it's going to be building every week, and we encourage comments, ideas for other topics that might be helpful to people's families.
Excellent.
Fantastic. Yeah, well, you've shared so much with us over the months and years, so we appreciate it, and we'll be looking forward to checking out that YouTube channel. Larry Sprung, founder of Mitlin Financial, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.